Hello, my name is Earl Malveaux, and this is my MAE Artifact Analysis. Let's get started. First, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll move on to an overview of what this presentation is about. In the top left-hand corner is a picture of me when I retired from the Marine Corps in 2021. Shortly after, I moved to Texas, and this is where I started my teaching career. Last year, I completed my first full year of teaching, and this is where I'm going to get a lot of my references as I go through and present these artifacts in this presentation. That picture on the right is a poster board that my students presented to me at the end of the school year. It was to say goodbye because I was switching school districts this upcoming year. Below, we have a MAE plan of study. What this is an overview of all of the coursework I completed throughout um, this, this degree. Across the top, we have a chronological list of courses that I've taken, and what is in the grid, I have artifacts that align to each of those courses and show which PLO that they align to. I also have listed within those little boxes if I feel like I was introduced to that concept, or if I'm developing, or if I think I'm mastered. As we go through, there is a slide for each one of these artifacts and classes and explains how they align and what the artifact is. What we have first is MAE 610, Plan of Study and Practitioner Research. I aligned this with PLO number 4. And the reason why I did this is because PLO number 4 seems to want the candidates to integrate reflective practices in their work. And all of that needs to be related to research methods and things of that nature. The original practitioner research review is the artifact that I'll be presenting here. The reason why is because this is exactly what the PLO wanted us to focus on. In this review, we essentially developed a research question on our own, and then we found previously completed research on our question. It had to align pretty well. uh, when we went through, we had to look at the participants, the methods. We had to look at the limitations and the findings, and that was a very good process of reflection. I say that my competence in this is developing because this was the first time that I've done something like this. I don't think it'll be my last time as I continue my educational journey. The next course is TED 602, Educational Foundations. I also aligned this to PLO4 because once again, this is focusing on reflecting on practices, that are grounded in previous research. The class itself was pretty much focused on all of the things that make up why education is the way it is, the psychology behind it, the politics behind it, and all of the things that go into that. The artifact that I'm presenting for this one is it's called the Experience Optimist. And the reason why I bring that up is because I have a history being in the Marine Corps, and I have experience, but I'm optimistic like a new teacher as I go into this. With this class, I have to think about all of the things that go into some of the resources that are given to students, some of the resources that students don't get. We're talking about the different populations. We're talking about the social, economic status of students and what their schools may not have. We're talking about idea, and when we're dealing with students with disabilities, we're talking about all of the students that are classified as ELL or ESL. These foundations that we have historically are the reason why the students get these things that they get now, because maybe they didn't have them and somebody brought those issues up. I feel like I'm developing in this as well because it's my first year of instruction, and I got to see some of the things firsthand, but I still have plenty more experience to gain. The next class that we'll be going over is Psychological Foundations of Education. In this class, students go over the physiological needs of students and the psychological development of them as well. I felt like this aligned with PLO number three because PLO number three wants teachers to apply methods that you studied or that have been researched. You want to put that into practice. And this course goes over a lot of the research and gives you ideas on how to put that research into good use. The artifact that I will be presenting now is an interview with a veteran teacher. She was a teacher for about 30 years, or has been a teacher for about 30 years. She's actually my daughter's middle school teacher, and my daughter qualifies for an IEP. She was receiving special education services, and this teacher, she dealt with a lot of students like my daughter and a lot of students with other needs as well. I felt like my competence for this one is developed because through my first year of teaching, I applied some of those research methods. Some of the things that Miss Bird talked about, or Dr. Bird talked about, were making sure you meet those basic physiological needs of students. If they're hungry or if they're cold, they're not going to be able to contribute and learn very much in class. And when I was in my first year, I identified that some students, they may have been cold or hot, and I had to adjust the temperature. They may have been hungry a little bit or tired, had to give them time to rest or give them a snack. So I'm developed in this, but I'm not mastered yet. Still have a lot of practice to go. The next class that we'll be discussing is parent engagement. I feel like this aligns pretty well with PLO number four because although PLO number four wants you to ensure that you're reflecting on previous research, it also wants you to ensure that your practices are grounded in professional ethics. The artifact that I have here is a community resources presentation. I thought this was pretty good because it's something that we needed to get out to parents in the county. And at the time, I was planning on moving to Nevada. So I picked Clark County, which is the biggest county in Nevada. So I had to find some resources in that area. And I thought the presentation came out pretty good. Now, when it comes to my competence in this, I still say it's introduced because it's pretty easy to put together some resources, but it's a whole different thing to ensure you get those resources out to parents. There was a couple times throughout this last year where I put together some things and I didn't take the extra effort to ensure that I got that information to parents, or a student may have needed some intervention, or I needed to talk to a parent, and I let things, simple boundaries like language barriers, because I had a very high population of ELL parents and students in my class. I just didn't take that extra step. So I know that I still have plenty of growth in this department, and that's something that I'll be working on in this upcoming year. The next class that we'll be discussing is exceptionalities. I feel like this aligns perfectly to PLO 2 because PLO number 2 wants you to design curriculum that meets the needs of all students. And all students means meeting the needs of students that have different exceptionalities. When we're speaking of that, we're talking about students with disabilities, gifted students. There's a wide range of students that are not just in the typical classroom, or they may be in a typical classroom, but they may have some additional needs. When we talk about the artifact I have here, I have a brochure on dyscalculia. Now, dyscalculia is something I had never even heard of, but it's directly related to math, which is what my BS is in, and that's what I teach, math. So why not develop a brochure on something that I actually teach and aligns with exceptionalities? Competence, I say, is introduced. I might be being a little bit hard on myself, but I feel like I should definitely be better because I had a wide range of students with exceptionalities in my class. I had some gifted students, and I don't feel like I did them enough justice this past year. I had some kids with IEPs in my class, and at times I think I did okay, but at other times I don't feel like I did them as well as I could either. So this next year. I will be doing additional training and I will be leaning on my peers a lot more to ensure that I'm meeting the needs of all of these students. Foundations of language development. Now, this one aligns with PLO number two because once again, PLO number two wants us to focus on developing lesson plans and curriculum that that helps all students, that's accessible by all students. And if you understand the level or the language development that a student has, then you'll be able to ensure the accommodations are appropriate for them. The artifact that I have here is a lesson plan accommodated for ELLs. Now, even though you have an accommodation put in place for a certain population, I've understood and I've learned throughout the year that that doesn't mean that that accommodation won't aid other students. For instance, in this example, I have in the highlighted in yellow on the second block, it says have students work for 5 minutes independently and then share their conclusions for the second 5 minutes. Now, what's happening there is that gives all of the students processing time. They have 5 minutes to process whatever content that you're going over, and then they can come up with their own ideas. Now, for the second 5 minutes, this is when you can talk to your peers and you can come up with different ideas, and you say, "Oh yeah, this is the idea that I had, or this is what I thought it meant, but what you're saying makes more sense." And that helps all students. That doesn't just help a single population. With this competence, I say that I'm developing. I was able to implement some of these strategies throughout the year, and I know that as time goes on and I learn from my peers that I'll get more ideas as the years goes on. The next course that we'll be discussing is classroom management. I think that this one aligns with PLO number 3 because in order to manage a classroom, you may have some ideas on your own, but there are plenty of tried and proven techniques that are out there. So you want to definitely try to apply those techniques in your own classroom as you go through. The artifact that I have here is a classroom management notebook. I really like putting this thing together because it gave me an appreciation for all of the things that teachers are going to have to do. And as a new teacher, if you had some type of handbook to look at, maybe not a end all be all, but at least to give you some ideas, I think that that's a good resource to have. Uh, the competence for this one, I feel like I mastered. And I won't say it's because of my 1 year of teaching experience. I think that is because of my history in the Marine Corps. I was a platform instructor while I was there, so I had some classroom management techniques that I can use there. And it wasn't all yelling and craziness. You actually had to try to motivate the students in different ways. And a lot of those techniques that I was able to use there, I was able to use in my classroom this last year, and it was a seamless transition. I didn't have very many issues with students, and if an issue did arise, I was able to handle it for the most part. I think I didn't have to call a principal for this first year, and that to me was an accomplishment. Next up is computer technology in the classroom. This one aligned to pillow number 1 is pretty straightforward. Pillow number 1 wants you to integrate technology into your coursework, and that's exactly what this course was about. The artifact that I picked here is a classroom technology grant proposal. Now, what was supposed to happen is I was supposed to find standards that aligned with the curriculum that I was teaching, and then find technology that directly assisted with the accomplishment or the meeting of those standards. Now, for this one, I feel like my competence was mastered. Like this assignment, I feel like I could actually take a proposal like this and present it to the district that I work in now. I could say, hey, this is the technology that I want. This how it aligns with what we're trying to teach. These are the costs. This is how I'm going to use it and the activities that we can use it in. This last year, I was able to integrate different technologies into my classroom. I shared those ideas with some of my peers. I paid for some of the stuff myself because I wasn't at the time prepared to present a proposal to the district that I was in the format that they wanted. But moving forward, I do know what I need to do for this district that I'm going to be moving to. So I feel like I got this one figured out. Content area literacy is what's up next. This aligns pretty well with PLO number 3 because it is expected that you take some research, you learn from the research, reflect, and then you apply it. Now, when it comes to math and literacy and vocabulary, a lot of people are just now getting comfortable with discussing that. because it is clear now that as you understand what's going on, you should be able to express what's going on when you're solving these problems. You should be able to write a sentence to say, "Hey, this is what I did," and that applies with math just like it applies with various other content areas. The artifact that I have here is a reading study guide. The reading study guide just says, hey, here's the vocabulary you need to know. Here's some previous knowledge you need to pull on. And then here is questions that you need to ask as you go through the reading. And if you do all of these things, you have a good understanding of what the question is asking, and you'll know how you need to answer that question. Um, this reading study guide is not one that I use specifically in my lesson plans this year, but I did utilize other techniques to ensure that the students had a good grasp on some of the literature that we utilized throughout the year. The competence for this one is developing. Like I said, I did utilize some different techniques. I ensured the students use academic language when we went through. One of the examples is the abbreviation for sine and cosine, as sine is sin, and they wanted to say sin and cos. I'm like, no, 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 that's sine, that's cosine, and we made jokes out of it, but we ensured that was something that they understood as they went through. And to conclude, we have the applied practitioner research customized study. Now, what this class was put together for was to have candidates reflect on all of the coursework that they've completed thus far, and to put together your own practitioner research study proposal. Now, the alignment for this one is PLO number 4. Uh, Once again, we're expected to reflect on our practices and other people's practices. And the artifact that we have here is a practitioner research study proposal. All I have here is a timeline, but this proposal was put together based on the reflection of 5 different research studies. So once again, that's why it aligns pretty well with PLO number 4. The timeline that you have here gives all of the stages that would be required to complete this practitioner research study. The competence that I put for that is developing, because once again, this is the first time that I had done anything like this. I mean, but I feel like it's something that I could put together if I had time, if I was moving forward with a doctoral program and I actually completed this study. I feel like that is something that I could complete. Maybe the scope might be a little bit too grandiose for me. Maybe I tone it down just a little bit, but I do think it's something that could be accomplished. To conclude, I feel like I've learned a ton during this journey, and every single class has given me something that I can apply into a real life classroom. And so, thank you for taking your time to look over this video, and good luck moving forward.